Jujutsu Kaisen is a fighting manga, and dare I say one of the best when it came to that specific aspect, fights. Of course, I wouldn't be claiming this if Jujutsu Kaisen wasn't packed with great fights, and in today's video, let's talk about the best from our beloved series. What's up guys, Restless Gambly here, and in today's video, you see the title, you see the thumbnail, you probably see how long this video is. Every Jujutsu Kaisen fight ranked. Let's get into it. And of course, make sure to subscribe, because I know I'm losing my mind editing this. Just a quick disclaimer before we get into it. I say every fight in Jujutsu Kaisen, but it's really based off this tier list I did like a week or two ago. It has a ton of fights on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a tiny bit of fights missed within it. With that being said, we'll start from the worst of the worst. The worst fight in all of Jujutsu Kaisen, we have Hakari versus Uraume. I am the Hakari Glazer of YouTube, and I will tell you as a big fan that this is the worst fight in Jujutsu Kaisen. First off, there was no build up towards it, obviously. The only value you get from this fight is if you look deeper into the way the characters acted beforehand. I of course was one of those people, and I made multiple threads on Twitter about what this fight meant, but we got nothing. Half-assed dialogue, exposition for Sukuna's fight, and nothing else. The next three fights are the bottom of the barrel fights, F tier fights if you will. This includes Ino versus the Grandma, Momo versus Nobara, and Takaba versus Hazunoki. Nothing fights, they meant nothing to the story, especially the Ino one. It wasn't even an actual fight. Entering D tier, we have more fights that either just didn't last long or meant nothing to me. Maki versus Ogi, Ino versus Toji, Angel versus Sukuna were barely fights. Toji blitzed and pummeled Ino. Angel literally let off one attack, then got bitten into submission, and Maki just one-tapped Ogi. Todo versus Megumi is next, and this was a very stupid fight to me. Todo's reason for fighting was, in quotations, funny. I didn't even find it funny myself, but Megumi is just so boring. I didn't like the fight at all. He used totality for the first time, sure, but Todo was still bodying him like a little baby. Kenjaku versus Hazunoki is another nothing fight. The guy had no chance against Kenjaku, and to put salt onto his wounds, Hazunoki's reverse curse technique, the only thing he has going for him, was halted by Kenjaku before he got killed. Yeah, the short scuffle between Kamo, Megumi, Inumaki, and Hanami is next on the list, and the only thing I liked from this fight was Kamo using piercing blood. And even that wasn't too crazy, I just liked the curse technique altogether. Panda vs Mechamaru was an out of nowhere fight, but it was cooler than the ones before it. I just don't care about any of them to really put it higher on the list. The canon was nice though. When the special grade finger bearer pulled up on Yuji and Megumi, the only good thing to come out of it was, well, exactly what I just said, the jump scare. Yuji got fodderized, and his first use of curse energy didn't move me in the slightest. Don't even get me started on how the finger bearer could manipulate curse energy in such a way, but someone with infinite curse energy couldn't. Gojo vs Sukuna's first fight was like 4 pages in the manga, and the anime, of course, they enhanced it a little bit, but it didn't show us much. The best thing it did was set up their conflict for later in the manga. Panda and Inumiki vs Geto is next, and it's purely here because of the movie. I also really dislike Inumiki, so I hope this is the last fight for him on this list.
I suppose I don't need to point out that you've been paying the Spring Street mortgage from
Yuta and Inumiki versus the random cursed spirit Geto let out is next, and this is also only here because of the movie. Yuta didn't even do anything. He got hyped up just to slide and throw Inumiki some throat medicine. The first Mahito versus Nanami fight is something I remember because of my Mahito versus Hakari video I made like a year ago. It was a cool fight, to be honest, cooler than anything before it, especially when Nanami went into overtime and left Mahito on the floor without legs. Next is Maki vs Mai, and this is the first fight with actual meaning that I care about. Please do not go into my comments talking about Yuji crying. I promise I could not care less. If you know me, you probably know that I love plot lines and themes about family and siblinghood, so this hit, but it didn't have the wow factor in terms of the surface level things for me. Yuji vs Junpei had meaning and more wow factor than Maki vs Mai, but to be honest, they can be interchangeable. Yuji vs the Grasshopper Curse was actually pretty funny and enjoyable in the manga. The anime was awful and it did this fight super dirty. Yuji vs Todo was next, and this is here because I like how Yuji was taking the fight so seriously, but Todo was just trying to train him. This fight also created a clutch friendship between the two, so of course it's gotta be mentioned. When Kenjaku came to help Mahito and ended up fighting the Kyoto school, it was kind of cool despite the slander I always have for Kenjaku. Him using Uzumaki on Miwa of all people was funny, and the anime really enhanced it with the visuals. After Inomiki's throat gave up while fighting Hanami, Maki appeared out of nowhere to help Megumi fight the cursed spirit. They fought alongside each other for like a couple pages, but the content within them was nice. Megumi casually matching Maki's speed isn't talked about enough, and Divine Dog Totality doing the most damage to Hanami the entire arc also isn't talked about enough. Cool fight though. Ryu vs Sukuna is next, and this is purely based off wow factor and yes, aura. Sukuna pulling up to Sendai, scaring everyone there, then slashing Ryu was cold. Ryu surviving it and getting praise from the king himself was also super cool, and the cherry on top was him getting bliss and cleaved in the head. Also, this gave me some inspiration for Mahoraga slander, so yeah, this definitely deserves a rank. Megumi vs Kamo is a fight that goes under the radar for most people, and again, I really like blood manipulation. Kamo also was always an interesting character to me, and once I reread this fight, I noticed how much I actually enjoyed it. This fight and the Ryu fight are interchangeable though. Next is Kirara vs Megumi and Panda, and this might be a hot take, but I love this fight. Yes, I did say Megumi was boring earlier, but this was different. He was actually cooking with his battle IQ. His lucky possession of random star trivia and Megumi watching Kirara's facial expressions to gauge his own bluff was nice. Could be in the comments all you want, this fight was cold. The battle during the night parade, which was actually just the stuff in the movie, is next, and it's only here because of the black flashes. I mean, come on, you're telling me you weren't hyped when Nanami pulled up out of nowhere and hit the most black flashes in a row we have ever seen? Come on now. Megumi vs Reggie's group can be below any of the recent fights I mentioned, but it's here just because of how badly Megumi was cooking them. Especially when he killed that one guy and proclaimed to himself that he's not afraid to kill a ton of people to get 100 points. Okay, this is probably the first actual hot take of the video, but Yuta and Gojo's body versus Sukuna was the worst fight in the entire raid. The only thing that moved me was Yuta pulling up. Everything after that you can delete from the story, and I'm being deadass serious, nothing would change. Yuta didn't die, Yuta didn't beat Sukuna, and the only thing he contributed was some shards from his domain. And that led to Angel using Jacob's ladder, but what did that actually do? Exactly nothing. I've said this so many times before, but make Sukuna's burnout last literally a couple seconds longer and Yuta doesn't need to come back again. Yes, I have Yuji versus Hikari over that fight, and it's not because Hikari's in it. Well, it is, but other than that, seeing Yuji express his new values and self-worth moved me, and it moved Hikari as well. Next one is a hot take, but yes, I have Yuji and Megumi versus Awasaka in this place. I like when Megumi isn't a boring piece of crap and actually uses his brain. The Gojo bluff and no one understanding what he meant except him was cold in my opinion. He figured out the curse technique with pure observation and nothing else. Dagon vs Naobito, Maki, Nanami, and later Megumi was a mid-fight in my opinion. The only thing I really liked was Naobito cooking Dagon before he used his domain. Projection sorcery is probably my favorite curse technique in Jujutsu Kaisen, so it's pretty obvious why I'd have this opinion. The anime didn't really help, but I do think this fight is better than anything behind it. Gojo vs Paper Bad Guy is here because I love Gojo, and Teen Gojo was just amazing to watch no matter what he was doing. The anime went above and beyond with the fight as well. This scene of him inside the building wasn't anywhere in the manga, but they went out of their way to enhance the fight. Yuji's first actual fight with Mahito was cool. His rage moment was definitely the highlight of the fight. And when Sukuna told Dude to stay in his place, it did things to me. Yuki vs Kenjaku is next, and no, it's not the final part, it's the first part. This segment of the fight was nothing. Yuki killed a cursed spirit, punched Kenjaku, then took a domain expansion. That was it. Nothing more, nothing less. The reason it landed so much higher than everything else though is because of the punch that Yuki landed. This was one of my favorite punches in the entire series. This thing went through Kenjaku's guard like a piece of paper. Gojo vs Miguel was racist. That's it. Geto versus that one curse user was funny. Geto cooked him in hand-to-hand combat so hard his life flashed before his eyes. This literally didn't happen to anyone else in the entire manga. This was a one-time thing. Finally entering C tier, we have the second worst fight in the Sukuna raid, Miguel and LaRue's addition to the fight. This was nothing. I hated the fact that they hyped up Miguel so much just for him to dance like a monkey and do nothing else. LaRue at least helped Yuji land a Black Flash. I would say this is better than Yuta and Gojo's body versus Sukuna because Sukuna dominating with his Black Flashes was super cold. I even have this PNG of him looking menacingly at the camera. The domain expansion fight with the two idiots, Maki and Naoya, was cool. Naoya had a super crazy domain expansion and we got insane exposition about the heavenly restriction. I mean, just look at this page, come on now. Megumi vs Reggie is so disrespected in the community. While yes, it is the weakest fight in the Culling games, it was still a decent fight. Megumi is a boring guy when you don't give him a technique to figure out, but if you give him someone he actually has to try against, oh yeah, give me that. Pharaoh Megumi is my favorite Megumi, and we saw that during this fight, fighting in the shadows, exiting and fighting hand-to-hand combat just for Reggie to get eaten by the dogs. Yeah, I do not regret this placement. Maki vs Miwa is only this high because of the spectacle the anime gave us. In the manga, it was cool as well. Miwa having a flashback to Mai calling Maki weak while getting her crap kicked in was super funny. Oh yeah, okay. This placement is gonna piss a ton of people off. Yuta and Yuji vs Sukuna is at this place, and it's simply because it just wasn't it for me. There's a huge shock placement later in the video, and I'm going to explain this placement as a prerequisite for that explanation. Yuta and Yuji vs Sukuna was literally just boxing. There wasn't any character work, there was barely anything for me to be like, oh yeah, I want to find out what happens next. And the one time I had that was a cliffhanger of Yuta using cleave, and that amounted to literally nothing at that moment. Remove this and everything else can flow exactly the same way because Sukuna didn't think about his finger once the entire raid until Yuta told him about it. It's crazy in saying this because there's another Yuta fight in this tier list that ranks super high, so I promise you this is not Yuta hate. The fight itself was just mid. Sukuna vs Yorozu was a fight I actually dropped JJK on for a couple of weeks. I don't think it was actually because of the fight itself, it was just that back then One Piece was doing great on my channel, so I was more focused on the One Piece chapters. After rereading this fight, it was decent, I guess. Yorozu was horrible, but it wasn't the worst fight ever. Sukuna was aura farming the entire time though, like why did he do this? Yuji and Higuruma vs Sukuna. This was cold, and I remember the discourse surrounding Higuruma back then when these chapters were coming out. Sukuna touring around with him, ultimately killing him, then thinking about his actions afterwards was great as well. Better than that BS I talked about just now. The man with the potential on par with Gojo Satoru. Yuji vs Sukuna when Sukuna first took over Megumi. This was highly rated by everyone, but for me it was just cool. The double spread of him walking through the slashes and him just going off destroying everything in his way moved me. We got some character work, yes, but the fight was just not long enough. Give me a chapter or two more and this fight might go up quite a bit. Kajima vs Panda is here. Yes, it is here. And that's because of the way Kajima washed this guy. It was never close, and Gege showed us this by having Kajima cook him in literally every single aspect. Kajima blitzed him, Kajima cut off his arm, had better internal damage, and once Panda used his trump card, Kajima just one-shotted with his trump card. We also got some stuff with Panda's character, but again, I don't really care about him too much, so that's whatever. Next is Akari vs Charles, and this is only here because we got the Ghost use of the main expansion for the first time. People really like to read this fight without context, especially this moment right here, but that's a topic for another video. I liked how Akari controlled the fight the entire time despite not being able to predict what's going to happen. Get it? Cause Charles has the ability to predict? No? Alright bro. Kusakabe vs Sukuna despite all the memes was a decent fight. Kusakabe was throwing hands the entire time and he got his very own honor one moment. Albeit it was way, and I mean way worse than Gojo's, but it was cool nonetheless. Sukuna vs the Finger Bearer was actually pretty good to me. It's always nice to see Sukuna cook someone just significantly weaker than him, and him being the first in the entire series to use the domain expansion was crazy. He literally didn't even need to do that too, because he was cutting off limbs like it was paper beforehand. He just wanted to flex. Nanami vs Haruto was just hilarious. I remember rereading it for a past video, and honestly, this was a perfect fight for Nanami. It was just straight domination. Haruto tried to kick him, but Nanami was so durable it felt like he kicked a rock. Then Nanami wasted all of his luck with a couple hits. Yeah, that's a fight for sure. Entering the B tier, we have Megumi versus Sukuna. To be very honest to you guys, I don't even think this should be here. We're too deep into the video for me to change it though, so here we are. This, in quotations, fight was complete mid. I think I was gaslit into placing this fight this high by my chat, but I've said this the entire video. Megumi is super boring, and his fights are when he's not trying to figure out something or letting loose. Realistically, this fight should be going high diff with like the Yuta fight or something. Yuji and Nanami versus Mahito is one of the most iconic moments in all of JJK, and this is precisely why it's so high. This jumping changed JJK forever, but beyond that, Mahito letting off his domain expansion from pure desperation, then Yuji jumping in leading to Sukuna to slash him. Yeah, this fight was cold. Sukuna when he's acting like a calamity always moved me. Maki and Yuji versus Sukuna and Megumi's body is here, and this is mostly because of the aura Maki was oozing from her body. She came in to handle business, and Sukuna could sense that. And so for the couple of pages they all fight in, Maki did just that, handle business. That is until her precognition got blitzed by Urame, but if I speak, I'm in big trouble. Yuta and Yuji is next, and this fight was cold as well. Yuta was putting in work despite not taking the fight too seriously. The choreography was on point, and Yuji's on the fly battle IQ always moves me when he uses it. Yuta versus Kururushi was a cool fight as well. Yuta slicing an arm off, stabbing it to keep it in place, then pushing the roach away was definitely one of my favorite combat sequences in the entire manga. Sukuna's last fight in the manga was against Yuji inside of his domain, and this is where that fight ended up for me. Please don't get me wrong, I'm not here to say it was a bad fight or anything, but it definitely wasn't the best fight ever. Now, I would be lying if I said I hated the Megumi dialogue. It was actually cool, but the actual fight we saw was just boring to me after all the hype. Sukuna using Hollow Wicker Basket and not even avoiding Yuji's blows anymore, Megumi making a small ass puddle helping Yuji get like one punch in, and then Nobara. Do not even get me started, this is the worst moment in the entire series and it's not even close. Gege, when I have Choso versus Naoya over that fight, and it's purely because of Choso's dialogue alongside Naoya's curse technique. I've been saying I love projection sorcery, but Choso's big brother dialogue was too peak for me. One of my favorite pieces of dialogue in the entire series for me in terms of personal impact. The fight between Naoya, Maki, and Kamo is over that, and this is purely because they put two of my favorite curse techniques against each other. Kamo using different techniques with blood manipulation like binding, piercing blood, the net, everything he could try against Naoya, and then now using projection sorcery in the craziest way we have literally ever seen him use it. Yeah, give me that. And obviously above both of those is Naoya versus Maki. Speed is weight. Maki trying to adapt to the technique itself, Naoya moving at top speed, and Gege showing us a bit of Toji crumbs. Yeah, give me that. We're finally on the A tier and things are starting to get juicier. In the tier list I'm basing this video off of, they put Nobara and Yuji fighting Mahito at the same time, and so this is where I'll put it. Yuji versus Mahito before Nobara died was actually super cool. The anime went above and beyond, but adding the part where Nobara played Mahito and also when Yuji reacted to her curse technique and started beating the bricks out of Mahito, I certainly liked it. You can tell the anime carries most of my opinions in this video. Yuji versus Higuruma was a fight that genuinely moved me when I first read it. Something about Yuji immediately saying he's guilty for the massacre of Shibuya without a second thought, and Higuruma knowing it's not true got me. On top of that, the choreography was on point. You can always count on Yuji for some good hand-to-hand combat. And speaking of, after LaRue let Yuji hit a Black Flash on Sukuna, we have that one chapter where Yuji just decided he'd chain Black Flashes and not look back. If you guys follow me on Twitter, you know how pissed I was when this chapter came out. I made a theory that Hikari would break the Black Flash record by making binding vows only he could make because he has infinite curse energy.
Oh my gosh! Feed. I told you.
Yeah, then I wake up one morning to my guy Heavy sending me the leaks, and Yuji hit 2,000 Black Flashes in a row. Jokes aside though, I really like this portion of their fight because there was no words until the end, just straight boxing. Yuji using Shrine for the first time, Sukuna hitting a Black Flash with his nub, getting exposition about Sukuna and Yuji's relationship by blood. Despite my anger back then, it definitely earned a spot in the A tier. Yuta vs Geto was hard carried by the anime, and sadly the Black Flash fight just didn't have that luxury, so it's not above it. This fight was crazy. Yuta pulling out Kurt's speech after literally doing nothing of the sort the entire movie, then Geto handling both Yuta and Rika with Playful Cloud in a dream, then getting hit with a black flash in the face while he's talking to Yuta. The fight before the beautifully animated beam clash was crazy, and yes, the way the love beam was animated put it over the top for me. Megumi vs Toji was super good in both the anime and the manga, but of course, like a ton of fights in this video, the anime carried it to this placement. There was so many things they added to the fight for literally no reason, but I was here for it regardless. Toji staring at lightning coming at him, Toji fighting all the bunnies Megumi let out, Toji throwing Playful Cloud like he's hunting for deer, crazy stuff. And season 2 was just peak. When Todo came back after like 100 chapters to help Yuji put the beast on Sukuna, I was ready. Of course, this came right after one of my favorite characters died, and then it preceded one of my favorite characters being used for his death, but the fight itself was cold. Todo's curse technique is another one I like seeing in action, and the version of his technique that he had during this fight was ridiculous. 50 swaps per second, not minute, second. That is insane, and Sukuna himself admitted it is literally impossible to adapt to said technique. The fight also took inspiration from the manga, and the final sequence of the fight was just so Todo-like. Multiple layers of deception is crazy. If you can do that to Sukuna, you can do it to literally anyone in the verse. Kashima was hyped up by the story to be super strong, especially with his curse technique. To say I was not impressed by his curse technique is an understatement. However, I did like his fight nonetheless. Kashima's role in the grand scheme of things was important, and it went over a ton of people's head. Only Kashima could have forced Sukuna's transformation, and we see why. He dominated one-armed Sukuna to the point where if he didn't transform, he was literally done. And once he did, he aura farmed Kashima to death. There wasn't a single panel after Sukuna transformed where Sukuna wasn't aura farming. We had bro walking towards Kashima menacingly with literal aura around him. Dude put his curse 2 in his mouth to cook Kashima in hand-to-hand combat even worse, and then told him to dodge bro cut and slash, then make a net of dismantles flying towards him. What the heck even was this? He didn't use this a single time after that. Their dialogue at the end of the chapter was great as well, and this is the reason the fight is up here for me. The burden of the strongest and the thing they yearn for, Sukuna didn't care about it, and that's why he had to slaughter Kashima. Yuji and Todo vs Hanami is another iconic fight from Jump Jutsu Kaisen. There was so many parts I loved about this fight. Yuji's triple kick, Todo slapping Yuji, Yuji hitting 5 black flashes in total and 4 in a row, and most of all, when Todo decided to use his curse technique and everything changed. There's just something about a hand-to-hand user teaming up with Todo that really gets me, because if you get caught lacking, you're taking a mean punch or kick, and Hanami was aware of that. But Todo was so smart and Yuji was so locked in that Hanami just couldn't adapt. Everything was good about this fight, to be honest. It's just a shame it happened so early in the manga. Okay, now we're getting into the real stuff. Yuki and Choso vs Kenjaku is up next, and this is solely because of the fact that we got my favorite flashback in the entire series. Choso crying to Yuki about him failing as a big brother and deciding to put everything on the line during the Kenjaku fight moved me. The funniest part about this is that I remember waking up on my birthday to read this chapter on TCB, and it was like the best birthday present ever. The fight itself was peak as well. Choso's piercing bloods always hit, Yuki destroying everything with Garuda and her curse technique, and most of all, the mini Uzumakis. Contrary to popular belief, the Yuki black hole meant nothing to me. It does nothing for this ranking. I like this fight purely because of the flashback and Kenjaku's mini Uzumakis. Those were cold. Next I have Jogo vs Gojo, and this was crazy. I remember watching this for the first time and being taken aback by Gojo's eyes. I mean his domain expansion. Yo, what Kenjaku vs Choso, of course it had to be here. My goat Choso had a good record of fights. And of course it does help that he has blood manipulation. If you haven't noticed by now, I'm a big brother, so that's why I love Choso so much. Because he's the best big brother ever. Put respect on my guy's name, he had the best conclusion in the series, argue with a wall. Megumi versus the Finger Bearer. I would have never thought that Megumi, the boring piece of crap he is, would have hyped me up this much. Megumi saying, you know what, whatever, and throwing out a domain expansion for the first time ever can almost never be topped. He was going crazy. The Pharaoh laugh on top of that was insane. He literally laughed at the fact that his domain expansion wasn't complete, but he still went on to completely dominate the Finger Bearer. Megumi is literally the only one in the entire series to make actual shadow clones. Toji vs Dagon is next, and bro, this was insane. I'll be real, when I first read Shibuya back in summer of 2022, I was on autopilot, but this was literally the only fight I truly remember reading. And it's not to say it was the best in Shibuya, but it was super memorable. Especially the fact that Toji came in literally the opposite way of Gojo flying in the air from earlier chapters. The guy came in, snatched Playful Cloud from the strongest one there in terms of physicals, then went to work. No one was touching this man. He started running on water because he felt like it, and then he got bored of regular Playful Cloud, so he sharpened it and cooked Dagon. Toji literally always delivers when it comes to fights, and still on Toji, we have Toji vs Geto. When I tell you this fight was good both in the anime and the manga, I'm not even kidding you. The anime just added more to it. In the manga, Toji shoots at Geto when he first unleashes Cursed Spirits, but in the anime, he's literally dragged away by one and then shoots at Geto without even seeing where he is. Toji and Geto fighting while the building was falling down was a great addition as well. And once Toji had his win assured, dude smiled, sliced him open, then kicked the crap out of him. I love it. Mahito vs Mechamaru was a fight I didn't actually watch when it first came out, which is weird because I watched the entire Hidden Inventory arc and then the beginning of Shibuya. Regardless of that, lately I've been watching Gurren Lagann. I'm not done with it, but this fight changed for me as I got past the first part of the show. If you know, you know. Kenjaku vs Takaba was a fight everyone hated while it was coming out, and for me to say I wasn't the same, I would be lying. But when I went to reread the fight on some random day, I realized how funny it actually was. We gave this fight crap because it was happening in the midst of the final battle, and it was about a guy we literally all in unison do not care about. But honestly, for me, it was definitely the funniest fight in the entire series. Maki vs the Zenin clan was shocking. This was another fight during my autopilot read of the story that I actually remember because this was not expected. I remember seeing Itachi and Maki comparisons back in 2021, and I never understood why, but then I got to that part of the manga and was shook. I reread it for a past video and it still holds up. The choreography was probably the best in the entire series. The way she dismantled everyone running towards her was unmatched. She definitely deserves a spot on the list. Sukuna vs Jogo was something I forgot about during my first read. Of course, it dropped one of the most iconic lines in the series, "Stand proud, you're strong." But bro, the anime? My goodness. They had Jogo looking crazier than ever, and don't even get me started on Sukuna. When the anime gets fluid and Sukuna starts running through buildings, oh my goodness, the season 2 experience was literally unmatched. Nobara and Yuji vs Eso and Kejutsu was the best fight in season 1. I remember watching this the first time getting insane amounts of goosebumps. Then I rewatched it for my Choso video from like years ago and got the same amount of goosebumps. The double black flash matched up with the music going in and out, oh my goodness, it's everywhere. I mean the black sparks are everywhere. You know I'm saying that, right? Yuji vs Haba is here. Yeah, it's here. Gojo vs Toji, their first fight is at the tippity top of A tier, and this fight was insanely good. Imagine reading JJK and for the first time in the entire series, you see Gojo not only get hit, but Gojo literally get killed. This fight moved me the first time I read it, and then the anime did wonders with Toji. Masterclass. I'm pretty sure we're in the top 10 now. We enter the S tier and we have the top 9. At number 9 we have Kashimo vs Akari. I don't see why people have this as the best fight in the Culling games, to be honest. I mean, it was cool to read, of course, because Akari is one of my favorite characters, but to be honest, it didn't have the best fight in the entire series vibe. Especially given the fact that literally none of them used techniques, they just used the same exact gimmick the entire time. Be for real. At number 8, we have Maki vs Sukuna. Yes, this was my favorite fight in the entire Shinjuku arc. It has one of my favorite fight sequences with Maki and Sukuna clashing, the bridge falling down, and then a car coming in between them. Sukuna using his slashes to cut the car and send Maki flying into the building, and then Sukuna is already in the building before Maki can even land on the floor. The narrator told us that Sukuna was pumped having to fight Maki, and then he blissed her outside of the building when he felt like it. Then we got one of my favorite dialogues in the entire series. At its core, sorcery is all skin and flesh, and yet that body of yours is all marrow and bone. Don't you get it? Your very existence denies what it means to be a sorcerer. The outcome of this fight will prove which is worth developing, sorcery or the body. The guy blocked Soul Split Katana, grabbed it, then hit her with a Black Flash. Yeah, that's peak Shinjuku. Go argue with someone else. At number 7, I have Gojo vs Toji, their second fight. This fight doesn't flow better than any of the fights below it in S tier, and it's probably not even better than the first fight, but the only reason it's so high is because it has my favorite page in the entire manga. I don't know why I love this page so much, but I do. Maybe it's because of Gojo, but regardless of that, it got this high on the list. At number 6, I have Yuji and Todo vs Mahito. Honestly, what is there not to love about this fight? Mahito's transformation was crazy, and Yuji's counter to it was amazing as well. I am you, Mahito, so F you and die by my hands. Oh yeah, that's number 6. Number 5 is a shock placement I referred to earlier, is Yuta vs the Sendai Colony. This is my favorite fight in the entire Culling games, and yes, this eclipses Yuta's fight with Sukuna. First off, of course, there was way more meaning to this fight, but Yuta in general is just a fun guy to watch fight. Outmaneuvering Ryu into having hand-to-hand combat with him, then getting blown away. The triple domain expansion, Yuta taking Uro's curse technique and then using it in the most clutch moment. This was peak Culling games, and this will be, mark my words, the best animated fight in the entire Culling games when we get season 3. Quote me on it. Number 4 is Yuji vs Choso. My guy Choso snuck his way into the top 4, and this wasn't for no reason. The manga version was peak. Once they entered that bathroom and started boxing with the water spraying, I knew we were in for something insane. And I wasn't wrong to assume that because we had one of the greatest back and forths ever. Yuji squared up, fought, then got his liver cooked, then squared up again. And it ended with Choso making a clutch move to protect himself, taking Yuji out of the fight. I want you to notice that I haven't even talked about the anime version of this fight. The way they animated the choreography, and of course they added their own spins to the fight as well, it was just beautiful. My favorite thing about the anime version is how on site the fight was. In the manga, Yuji reacts to seeing Choso. He doesn't know who he is. In the anime, Yuji jumps down and Choso immediately squares up, shooting a piercing blood the second Yuji landed on the ground. This is peak Jujutsu Kaisen, you cannot tell me otherwise. At number 3, I have a fight that didn't rank this high for me before, but the anime, oh my gosh, the anime. Gojo vs the Disaster Curse Spirits was peak Jujutsu Kaisen. Even before the anime, getting multiple glaze panels and double spreads of my goat was crazy. Jogo in despair resorting to glazing Gojo in his own mind is also crazy. But the thing that put it over the edge for me was the anime's adaptation of Gojo's 0.2 second domain expansion. This is easily my second favorite animated thing in the entire series. The complete silence we got before seeing Gojo ravage through the crowd, I remember literally imagining how I wanted it to be animated, and they followed that script to a T. The top 2 is here, and I have to go with my heart. At number 2, I have Gojo vs Sukuna. Chill out, y'all. I promise there's a good reason this is only number 2. First off, any placement of this fight below top 2 is wrong. I don't think I have to explain this to anyone. 5 domain expansion clashes, my second or third favorite cursing knee being used to the max of its potential, Mahoraga, and Sukuna using his brain to outsmart the literal reader, and of course, Gojo's death and Sukuna's placement at the top of the verse. Beautiful. However, it's not as beautiful as number 1. Sukuna vs Mahoraga. There was literally no other fight in this entire list that got carried by the anime like this one. The manga fight was actual mid, but the anime version was so good it flew up to top 1. I don't know why they did this, I don't know how they did this, but I will say they did a good job because now it's at the top of my list. This is one of the only fights I've ever rewatched multiple times and gotten hyped every single time. And the only other one is Yuji and Nobara's fight. This fight was just insane in the anime, and it was so insane in fact that it was an episode long. Argue with the wall, this is top 1. Anyways guys, this script is officially over 2,000 words over my longest script before this, and quite frankly, I know I'm gonna be pissed editing this on my phone. But anything for you guys, you know? Make sure to subscribe. And I'll catch y'all in the next one.